Have your attention, livestock barn. We're fixing to begin the market goat show for this year. Before we do, let me make an announcement. This goes for the steer. This goes for all the exhibitors here, the steers and the goats. We have a lot of young kids here today. This is a school day. They're bringing the kids out. Be mindful when you're moving your animals around. And a lot of these little kids have never been around these animals. Be very mindful of all the young people that are walking up and down the aisles. If you'll turn the blowers off in the barn, gentlemen, if you will remove your caps and your hats for the singing of our national anthem. Our national anthem singer this morning, Miss Evelyn McIver. She's from York Junior High.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the balls bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Thank you, ma'am.
This will be first call, Class 1 market goats. Move to the holding area. We have 13 classes of market goats this morning. Then we'll go into a championship drive. We'll select our grand and overall. We'll have 20 guaranteed spots back in the cell, and we'll select 5 alternates. Following that, we'll go into a junior showmanship and then a senior showmanship class. After the senior showmanship, there will be a sales meeting back in the arena in front of the announcer stand about 5 minutes following the senior showmanship completion. Our judge for today is Mr. Steve Sturts. We want to thank him for coming in today to look at the goats. Class 1 market goats, you need to be in the holding area. 101, Tyler Thomas, champion 4-H. We need you in the holding area. Class 2, start moving to the holding area. Class 2, come to the holding area. Champion 4-H Club, we're looking for Tyler Thomas, exhibitor 101. Anyone in the barn see Tyler coming this way with his goat? This is Class 1, market goats. Exhibit number 102 is Lilith Franklin, Conroe FFA. 103 is Kenlon Tyler, champion 4-H. Class 2, market goats, need to be in the holding area. Class 2, be in the holding area. I need exhibitor 105, Raylan Ross, wagon wheel 4H to the holding area. 105, Raylan Ross, wagon wheel 4H to the holding area. Well, it's a beautiful day to be here in Montgomery County. I was thinking on the drive here how many times I've judged it, and I don't know in my 30-year career of judging, or 30 to 40 years, I guess now, how many times I've judged a sheep and goat show, but it's been several, and it's always fun coming here. I had somebody ask, I was on the phone and had somebody ask, was this the first show of the year or the last show of the year? I said, it doesn't matter. I says there's going to be good goats and there's going to be good kids, and we're going to have fun, and we're going to have a good day. And so we're going to work with these youth a little bit. We're going to get a chance to evaluate their stock and put a sale order together. Again, I always enjoy the quality of stock here in Montgomery County, enjoy the help you all have and the people you have on the outside that help put this together, and you're known as one of the better shows in the state, and I think that it's well-deserved from my trips here over the years, and appreciate the opportunity to work through your goats here today. As we look at this first class, we've got a major decision. We've got two goats that have some really good qualities about them. If you're going to just hang them on the rail, you've got one that wins. And if you look at the show quality and the movement and the looks of one, you use the black goat with the white on him. This goat's really structurally sound, moves around the ring nice. I like his placement of his neck into his shoulder into his rib. He's not as robust and big in the middle part of his body. He doesn't have as much muscle coming back through his loin and through his hip. The question is does he have enough? And yes, he does. He's got enough of that, along with the qualities of being structurally and skeletally sound, to go first over the one that I consider the carcass goat that we're going to put in second. This one here, if you handle them, if you were just to hang them on the rail, not look at feet and legs, not look at movement, not look at that type of thing, this one wins the deal. But we're not hanging them up. We're not judging them in a cooler today. We are looking at those carcass merit traits and looking throughout the day to find one that puts those combination of things together. And we'll talk about that as we get in the classes about the combination goats, the goats that put that meat, muscle, and structure and skeleton together. In this class, I think the bigger difference is the skeleton and structure. The black goat wins on that. Obviously, if we hang them, the second goat, two really nice lightweight goats, two really good kids. Let's give them a round of applause as they leave the ring in this class. Results Class 1, first place goes to 102, Lilith Franklin, Conroe, FFA. Second goes to 103, Kenlon Tyler, Champion 4H. First call, Class 3, move to the holding area. Class 3, come to the holding area. This is Class 2 coming to the arena. Exhibitor 104, Gavin Smith, Caney Creek, FFA. 105, Raylan Ross, Wagon Wheel, 4H. 106, Lily Forsey, Magnolia, FFA. And 107, Cheyenne Howard, Magnolia West, FFA. Well, as we go up in classes and weights, we get a few more head. We'll get a few more quality animals usually as we go through these shows, and it shows in this class. I think a really nice class. I think two kind of bring themselves to the top. We got a logical third, and then the one that kind of goes bottom that we just need more muscle to. But the one we start with, again, as I talked that first class, we're looking for those that structurally and skeletally are sound and look good moving around the ring, tie together as far as those things are concerned, and then put the right kind of muscle and meat and shape on that top, the right kind of body shape, and then, of course, finish is obviously something we're concerned with. We need to have some finish on them, but we don't need them too fat, and we need them to be lean and hard. And this goat that wins this class does those things. When he walks to you and from you, he really puts his feet and legs down good. He's got some forearm. We appreciate his rack and body shape. Really big in his loin, one that comes out to a nice level hip. We could probably smooth that front end of that shoulder up, maybe give him just a little bit more curvature to the lower rib when we compare him to Ideal, but one that wins the class nicely. Another carcass type goat in second, much like the last class. This guy doesn't tie together from his neck to his shoulder and his forerib quite as well as the one that wins it. Probably has just a little more shape to that loin and leg when we handle him as far as carcass characteristics. We'd like to make this one a little bigger footed, a little bigger boned, make him move out just a little bit nicer. Then we got a real race for first if he does those things, obviously. But we do appreciate that carcass attribute and carcass quality. He has good forearm, really nice as far as putting together some shape down his top. One that falls in logically third, I think, moves around the ring real nice, puts together his structure and skeleton fine. When we go down that top and we really go to handling and looking and analyzing that top 1/3 of this guy's skeleton especially, we need to make him a little wider. We need to make him a little more fresh as far as his loin and the way that comes into his hip. We'd like to see him just a little bit wider coming to us and going away from us in comparison to first. We'd like to see a little bit more muscle in comparison to the one in second. We round out with one that's long-bodied. The young lady's done a nice job as far as feeding him as far as finish is concerned. He's not too fat, not too lean. One that just doesn't have the musculature, doesn't have that touch and feel, not quite the width and dimension that the ones up top have. Really nice class. These kids have done an awesome job. Let's give them a round of applause for their efforts here.
Results Class 2. First place goes to 106, Lily Forsey, Magnolia, FFA. Second goes to 107, Cheyenne Howard, Magnolia West, FFA. Third was 104, Gavin Smith, Caney Creek, FFA. Fourth was 105, Raylan Ross, Wagon Wheel, 4H. First call, Class 4 to the holding area. Class 4 to the holding area. This is Class 3 coming into the arena. Exhibitor 108, Sarah Goss, Splendora, FFA. 109, Harper Burke, Lake Creek, FFA. 110, Daisy Schreiner, Evening Star, 4H. 111, Allie Kilgore, Lake Creek, FFA. And 112, Kaylin Koffel, The Woodlands, FFA.
Well, a really tough class. We've got two up here at top that I think both are really, really nice in their own ways, and we'll talk about the differences in them and why we placed them the way we did. Then I think we've got one in third that really handles good and's got a lot of muscle, maybe not quite as much freshness, not quite as much stoutness, and we round out with two that the young ladies have done a really nice job of feeding them as far as finish and presentation. Just probably could use a little more muscle or could use a little more muscle, especially when we get past that loin and back into the back 1/3 of their body. When it comes to the top two, I think it's close. I chose to go with the one that to me structurally and skeletally is a little bit sounder. We've got a little bit better angles to our shoulder and our knee. We move around the ring just a little bit nicer off that front end. I think as far as touch and tone, both of these animals handle real good as far as being lean and having a really good hide. Both of them have a lot of muscle back through their loin and back in through their hips. I would give the advantage to the one in second being a little bigger footed, a little bigger boned, but I don't think that front end is quite sound enough for me to push him up over one to me that handles really good structurally and skeletally, moves around, even though that we have a smaller foot and smaller bone. I think that one that wins it puts together that skeleton just a little bit nicer in that front 1/3. Now this one in second handles like a dream. He's got a big old leg in him. Appreciate that bone and foot size. Again, the bigger difference to me is skeletal structure over the handle and amount of muscle. We got one in third we talked about, just has a really good touch and tone, much like the first two. Handles very close to them. We get under the underneath side of this one. He gets a little bit narrower compared to the two up front. He gets just a little bit lighter in his bone, a little bit lighter and smaller in his foot size. We'd like to not make him so refined and give him a little more there. Give him just a little more fullness in that loin edge in comparison to the top two to move him up and give that second one a run. The Cape Goat here, really appreciate that profile, length of body, levelness. This one handles real nice as far as its amount of rack shape. It's just not as bold in its rib, not as pulled apart in the middle part of its body, sure not as pulled apart in the back part of his hip and down into his leg. And he's much like the one that's behind him. He's just a little bit wider going away and coming to me than the one behind him. I just need to give that one more meat. Both these young ladies have done a great job of presentation, getting them ready and bringing them to me. I just need more goat as far as muscle and shape and body dimension. But really, really nice class. These kids have done an awesome job. Let's give them a round of applause for their efforts here.
I need a parent for the exhibitor from Class 1 to the drug testing area. A parent for the exhibitor from Class 1 to the drug testing area. This is results of Class 3. First place goes to Kaylin Koffel, Exhibitor 112, the Woodlands FFA. Second goes to 108, Sarah Goss, Splendora FFA. Third went to 110, Daisy Schreiner, Evening Star 4H. Fourth went to 111, Allie Kilgore, Lake Creek FFA. And fifth was 109, Harper Burke, Lake Creek FFA. Class 5, move to the holding area, please. Class 5, come to the holding area. This is Class 4. Exhibitor 113, Kyle Norris, Outback 4H. 114, Kelsey Richards, Conroe FFA. 115, Leah McCracken, Trails End 4H. 116, Sophia Tristan, West Fork FFA.
Well, a nice class. I think we've got one that wins this one kind of easy, and then you can kind of sort the other three and look at your positives and negatives and do some different things there. But like the way we lined them up here. The one that starts, I'll start off with saying he's just a little fuller than I'd like for my likings out here. But when we look at him and we handle him and we put everything together, he's a well-balanced goat. He's got a big forearm, comes at you, goes away from you wide. Really appreciate him on the move. One that you get up on the top of this guy and his blade comes up really nice into that forerib. Excellent, excellent rack shape and loin shape and hip shape and muscle. We could probably, he's got just a little tie in his back. We got probably could make him just a little leveler top if we were going to compare him to Ideal and get real hard on him and change that feel. But I think when you look at this one as far as substance and width and dimension and muscle and frame and structure, this one puts it all together best. I think it's close between the next three. The young lady coming next, really long-bodied, really level. I like the way that one handles it, his last rib. I like the way he comes out with his hip with a little more muscle than the one in third. I think he could be a little bit neater as far as his structure or his skeleton is when we look at that front part of his rib, but one that we appreciate that length of body and those attributes and quality of top. This one handles probably a little fresher in that loin as far as having some bounce to it, probably a little fresher throughout his body wall when we look at him in comparison to the one in second. However, we get back to that hip and pin setting, we're not as wide in that hip. We don't have as much dimension in that front one-third of the body. One that has a little more middle than the other two that are directly in front of him is the one in fourth. One we appreciate that balance in front to rear flank. One that just gets a little flatter in his side, doesn't handle with quite the width and dimension that the ones above him do as far as total muscle and total package. Really, really a nice set. Let's give these girls and young man a round of applause for a nice job.
Results Class 4. First place goes to 115, Leah McCracken, trails in 4H. Second was 114, Kelsey Richards, Conroe, FFA. Third was 113, Kyle Norris, Outback 4H. And fourth was 116, Sophia Tristan, West Fork, FFA. First call, Class 6, move to the holding area. Class 6, move to the holding area. This is Class 5, Exhibitor 117, Laney Robinson, Champion 4H. 118, Anna Wells, Evening Star 4H. 119, Beatty Scoggins, Willis FFA. 120, Caitlin Guillen, Splendora 4H. 121, Kendall Wiot, Champion 4H. 122, Aubrey Burke, West Fork FFA. 123, Carly Hagemeyer, Montgomery FFA.
Okay? She lost. How are you? Good. How are you today? Good. Go around the front, we'll look at them quick and see front end, please. You just pull this side over there, you go. job of feeding this one. He's not too fat, not too thin. He hides good, so no mites, no lice. That's always a good thing, obviously. So that tells me that you take good care of him, and that's I appreciate that. I wish he'd have a little more muscle here, especially his leg. I like his muscle body. He's kind of in the same boat. You have a little bit more muscle than this one as far as leg muscle, maybe just a little more loin. I'd like to see more body and more width in this one. Okay? This one handles real hard in this thing. He's done a good job that way. Of course, finish-wise, he's good. He's not too fat, not too thin. I'd like his shoulder. His shoulder doesn't land in here as well. Yeah, he's a little bit bigger here. And I'd like him to be bigger here. He's a little bit off in his loin. I feel like his loin opens up and a little wider. He needs to balance a little bit better when I look at front flank to rear flank. Now, I like his length of body. I like his leg muscle. I need to change those other things and put it together a little bit better to balance him out. Okay? Good job. Should be 4. Should be 3. Should be 2. Should be 1.
Lead exhibitor 125 to the holding area. Exhibitor 125, Riley West to the holding area.
Well, a really nice class. I think we've got one that wins this class pretty nicely. As this goat came in, he was the last one in and just kind of showed off and demanded my attention. We've got 2 behind that I think is where our decision is biggest in this class, and then we've got the 4 behind those that we'd like to give a little more lower leg, a little more muscle. But we're going to start off with one that, much like the other class, just really wide coming at you. Big old forearm, really big in that middle part of its body. But more importantly, when we get on that top, really good as far as his rack shape's concerned. Really good coming back into that hip. One that moves around the ring nicely, covers his track and hits the dust really nice. We could make that one maybe. He's just a tad full also like the one in the last class if I was going to get real critical on his fill. But I think when you look at the length of body, the balance from the side, the forearm, the width and dimension that one brings and still can move around the ring nicely, I think he wins nicely. Again, I said our decisions between second and third, and I think it's close between these 2. The one that's in second, maybe just a little bit bigger in that middle part of his body, a little bit bolder in that rib, more true muscle shape down that top and width down that top. The one in third may be a little more attractive as far as his profile is concerned and put together. Big old forearm, probably mirrors our first place goat as far as that front end quality of forearm and width and dimension to that front and the way that blade ties into that forerib. But he doesn't have quite the total loin, doesn't have quite the total leg, not quite as level as the one in second, probably a little bit nicer as far as feel. As I said, the one in third, bigger bone, bigger footed, really nice front end, that front 1/3, we really like that about him. One that handles nice as far as uniformity of finish. We could make him just a little bit better out that hip and that rear leg. Maybe make him a little more attractive when we get him on the side and on the move. One that's really attractive on the sides, this next one. I really like that levelness down the top, that extra length of body. This one's really smooth in his blade, ties in real nicely there. However, when we get to the bottom side of this one's skeleton, he's a little bit narrower at the bottom. He doesn't have quite that width. Consequently, when we get up to that shape of that rib and that shape of that body, it's not there because we don't have that foundation. We need to take this one and give more dimension to that rib, more dimension to that body, maybe a little bit more lower leg muscle in comparison to the top 3, but we like the attractiveness and the way that one's put together from the side. The next one, I told this young lady's got a big butt, got a really nice rib as far as dimension to the rib. I'd like to change this one's shoulder and front end. It's a little forward and a little big. We'd like to tie that in better. But more importantly, we'd like to change the loin width and dimension and the way that ties into the hip. Not quite as wide, doesn't have quite the dimension. And then we get to the bottom side, and sure, we'd like to give this one a little more bone, a little more foot size in comparison to some of them in front. But one that she's done a really nice job as far as feeding, finish, that kind of thing. Handles good. Just need more muscle in the rear need more muscle in the loin, need to clean that front end up a little bit. Next one's somewhat the same way, a little more refined, just needs more muscle, especially in that leg. This one needs to be just a little bit neater in the way it ties together over its top. In same song and dance, so to speak, in the last one, we like the way this young lady's taking care of this goat. It's just a little forward in its neck, not quite as attractive, but good as far as finish, as firmness. They've done a good job of taking care of their animal and bringing it to the show and getting what they could out of it as far as genetically what's possible. So I commend them for doing that and appreciate them bringing them here today. Let's give these kids a round of applause for a really nice class here.
First call, Class 7. First call, Class 7. Results of Class 5. First place goes to 123, Carly Hagemeyer, Montgomery, FFA. Second was 121, Kendall Wiat, champion 4H. Third was 117, Laney Robinson, champion 4H. Fourth was 122, Aubrey Burke, West Fork, FFA. Fifth was 120, Caitlin Ginn, Splendora 4H. Sixth was 118, Anna Wells, Evening Star 4H. And seventh was 119, Bailey Scoggins, Willis, FFA. Class 7, you need to be in the holding area. Class 7, you need to come to the holding area. This is Class 6. Exhibitor number 124, Abigail Dietz, West Fork Junior, FFA. 125, Riley West, Outback, 4H. 126, Rustin Jeffcoat, Splendora, FFA. 127, Jacob Hall, Oak Ridge, FFA. 128, Axton Smith, Caney Creek, FFA. 129, Parker Moriarty, Montgomery Dobbin, 4H. 130, Isabel Porter, Montgomery Dobbin, 4H. 121, Emily Kalaja, Evening Star, 4H. 132, Shelby Stagner, Oak Ridge, FFA. 133, Casey Pelton, Montgomery, FFA. 134, Skylar Meadows, Splendora 4H. 135, Noah Newells, The Woodlands, FFA.
class so far today, and a really nice class of individuals, particularly these top four up here. Really impressed with them, and they all have some qualities and attributes that we'll talk about and why would they separate themselves. We'll talk probably the top five. So as we get from 6 down, I talk to these youth about these. Some of them don't blend as well. Some of them don't have quite as much muscle. Some of them structure and skeletal quality, maybe not as much. But as a theme of the day, these kids have done an excellent job of taking care of these goats. I go to a lot of shows and judge a lot of shows, and we don't have any bugs on them, so to speak, lice, mites, problems there. These kids have taken care of them as far as feeding them. They're not too fat, not too thin. They've done a good job as far as presentation and getting them shared and getting them to the show. Done a nice job of presenting them as much as you can with some of these goats that act a little bit different. I always said, I bet he acts like a goat his whole life, and that's a true statement with some of them. But as we look at 6 on down, I'm really impressed with that. I don't know how much y'all go around to different places, but we don't see that everywhere we go as judges, and so I want to commend these youth, commend their ag teachers, the people that are responsible, county agents, for getting these goats to this point, because there's not anything wrong with these goats on down here except genetically in their end point they probably didn't have the chance to be as good as these did, and they've done a really nice job with the project they've had and got it to this point in a very fashionable and nice way. As we get to our top 5, this one, when it walked in, I just love the presence of this guy. You talk about big-footed, big bone, lots of feature. That's all nice. That hair and shag's nice. But when you talk about forearm and you talk about knee and how much base this one has, this one's big in its joints but not coarse in his joints. He really ties together from that blade up into the top of that wreck. We appreciate how he gets wider as he gets back. He gets wider in his loin, wider, especially out through that hip and pin setting. This guy's got a tremendous hip and pin setting. Now, is he the biggest bolt in his rib? No, the two behind him are bigger rib. They're bigger and bolder in the rib. They're not quite as neat about their front end, the way their neck ties into their shoulder. They're not quite as neat the way their shoulder ties into their forerib. They don't have quite as much presence from the side and on the move as the one in first, because he's up-fronted, he's goose-necked, and really cool looking from the side, and I think those things are what puts him in first over the ones in second and third. Second and third, very similar as far as touch, as far as handle, as far as boldness, as far as shape. The red goat, brown goat, whatever you want to call him, I'm colorblind, so we'll just call him the colored goat. But the goat in second, one that just doesn't have quite, or doesn't have quite the presence that the one in first does, but when we compare him to the one in third, he's a little bit fresher down that top. He's a little better in that loin. His edges stick up just a little. He's a little wider at the end of his edges. He's a little bit neater as far as the way his hip comes out into his pin setting and gives me more leg muscle than the one in third, along with being just a little bit cooler about that chest floor, forearm, and front end shape when we get him on the stand. Now, when we put him on the move, I probably like the one in third just a little bit nicer as far as putting balance together. The brown goat, colored goat, gets a little downer in his chest. He gets just a little bit off in his front end when we put him on the move. But on the stand, in that carcass characteristic of loin edge, loin width, and width down that top, are what gets him in second over the one in third. One in third, really appreciate that one as far as touch and tone. Really good as far as freshness and uniqueness of finish. One that just not quite as neat in his front. He's getting a little mature. He's getting a little wider in his skull. He's getting a little flatter in his bone. He's not pulled apart quite coming at me as well as the two in front of him. But when you get your hands on him, you really love a lot of things about him. We level that hip out, change that front end, and we've got a race between the next two and a really good quality top 3 in that first, or in this class. We get into fourth. One that I thought would be up higher when he walked in. I like the way he looks from the side. I like his structure and skeleton. He wants to give this young lady a little bit of problem stepping back and not bracing for him. But when we compare him to the other 3, he's not as crisp about his feel. He's not quite as wide through his hip. He's a little bit softer in his handle than they are. We'd like to firm him up a little bit, make his body wall thickness just a little bit different as far as that touch and tone goes. But one that's structurally and skeletally sound, moves around the ring nice. Firm that one up, give him a little more exercise, the last 3 weeks, and I think we really have a horse race between them top four as good a quality as he is. We get into top five, or the fifth, one that I appreciate the touch, one that's really long-necked and long-body. We just get a little more refined. We don't blend quite as well from our shoulder into our forerib. We deviate just a little bit from the top of the blade into that rib and rack. We'd like to change those things about, but one that touch and tone and handles really, really nicely. As I said, 6 on down, we'd like to give more muscle. We'd like to change structure. We'd like to change skeleton. Something about them in comparison to these top 5, but a really, really nice class, fun to judge. Let's give these kids a round of applause for a really good job.
First call, Class 8, move to the holding area. Class 8, come to the holding area. Results of Class 6. First place goes to 124, Abigail Dietz, West Fork Junior FFA. Second goes to 129, Parker Moratti, Montgomery Dobbin 4H. Third was 134, Skylar Meadows, Splendora 4H. Fourth was 131, Emily Kalaja, Evening Star 4H. Fifth was 126, Rustin Jeffcoat, Splendora FFA. Sixth was 125, Riley West, Outback 4H. Seventh was 130, Isabel Porter, Montgomery Dobbin 4H. Eighth was 133, Casey Pelton, Montgomery FFA. Ninth was 132, Shelby Stagner, Oak Ridge FFA. 10th was 135, Noah Newells, Woodlands FFA. 11th was 127, Jacob Hall, Oak Ridge FFA. And 12th was 128, Axton Smith, Caney Creek FFA. This is Class 7. Exhibitor number 136, Quincy Walker, Magnolia West FFA. 137, Knox Woodrow, New Caney FFA. 138, Marin Stevens, New Caney FFA. 139, Sophia Plassick, Grand Oaks FFA. 140, Natalie Alonso, Conroe FFA. 141, Marley Moratti, Montgomery Dobbin 4H. 142, Finley Frazier, Montgomery Dobbin 4H. 143, Lane Howerman, Champion 4H. 144, Ryler Jeffcoat, Splendora Junior FFA. 145, Kenley Ligner, Montgomery Junior FFA. $156, Penelope Vasquez, you need to be in the holding area. $156, Penelope Vasquez, to the holding area.
Well, another competitive class, as I said in the last class, we'll probably talk these top 5 and then 6 on down. Again, we were looking at the same thing. I talked to these youth about what we changed and why they're over here. We've got one to me that's just not ready, actually needs more time, needs to be bigger. We've got one that just probably doesn't have as much leg muscle and much width and dimension. We've got some that don't structurally and skeletally tie together not as nicely, especially from the side profile. But We're going to start with one, the colored goat, blanketed goat, whatever you want to call him. I think this one just is real nice as far as all of his qualities. There's goats that are bigger loined out here. There's goats that are bigger bodied out here. There's goats that may be even bigger boned out here. But when you put the forearm, you put the length of body, the proportional balance together, this one does it the best. When this one's moving, this is the one that sticks out. This is the one you gravitate to. We like the way this one looks at all angles. He's not quite as big in his loin as the one behind him or the ones in fourth and fifth, but he's longer body. He's more proportional. He's a little bit neater about his front end, forearm, and putting those things together in a really nice package. The one in second handles real good as far as loin width and dimension. We get some angles on this one. He gets a little chunky and wide-necked. He gets just kind of shorter in that body and that front end. We'd like to just extend that out, maybe make him a little more youthful there. But when you get back on that rib shape and dimension of that loin, he blows up. Tremendous amount of muscle in him. I think there's just more quality in that pin set, that width and rear hock setting in this one than the one in third. I think there's more total muscle, and I think the differences there put him second over the one in third. I would agree with you. If you look from the side, the one in third looks a little more like our one in first as far as that front end quality. A little trimmer necked, a little bit neater about the way his jaw and neck tie in, the way his neck ties into his blade and into his front end. He's not as bold and wide coming at you as the two in front of him. He's not quite as big in his foot and bone and in his joints as they are, but one that we appreciate that touch and feel he's got. To me, he's leaner. He's a little bit neater about his front end, a little bit cooler to the touch than the two that are behind him. The two that are behind him come back with that muscle shape, come back with that width and dimension. The one here in fourth is just a little softer handling. I'd like to firm him up a little bit, but I think his big advantage over the one in fifth, he's a little bit longer bodied. He's more proportionately balanced when you look at him from the side, especially on the stand. One that's wide and has a lot of dimension to the bottom side of his carcass and the bottom side of his body. One that we'd like to make just a little bit cooler about the front, make a little bit firmer and neater as far as his touch concerned, as far as that muscle tone. One in fifth, one that when he walked in, this one's kind of cocky and kind of demands your attention. Young man's done a really nice job presenting him and getting him out there and doing the things he needs to do to make that one walk and go out. When we get him compared to the others, he's a little forward in his knee. He's got a little more bend to his knee. He shortens up in his body. Proportionately wise, his length doesn't match his height in comparison to those others. We'd like to lengthen him out, make him better in that front end, give him just a little more coolness, if you will, when we talk about that length of body and proportion, but one that handles like a dream. Young man's done an excellent job getting him ready and having him firm and hard. Again, one firm and hard, one that we appreciate the top shape, doesn't have as much lower shape, doesn't have as much feature and width and dimension that the ones above them have. And then we get into some that structurally and skeletally we change. Again, a very, very competitive class. These kids have done an awesome job. Let's give them a round of applause for their efforts here.
Class 9, move to the holding area. Class 9, come to the holding area. Results, Class 7, first place goes to 138, Marion Stevens, New Caney, FFA. Second was 141, Marty Moratti, Montgomery, Dobbin, 4H. Third was 136, Quincy Walker, Magnolia West, FFA. Fourth was 143, Lane Howerman, champion, 4H. Fifth was 137, Knox Woodrow, New Caney, FFA. Sixth was 139, Sophia Plassick, Grand Oaks, FFA. Seventh was 144, Ryler Jeffcoat, Splendora Jr., FFA. Eighth was 142, Finley Frazier, Montgomery Dobbin, 4H. Ninth was 145, Kenley Ligner, Montgomery Jr., FFA. 10th was 140, Natalie Alonso, Conroe, FFA. This is Class 8, exhibitor number 146, Ada Campbell, Conroe, FFA. 147, Abby Yao, Montgomery, FFA. 148, Amadis Hardin College Park Junior FFA. 149, Una Leahy College Park FFA. 150, Savannah Shackelford Oak Ridge FFA. 151, Blakely Beriou The Woodlands Junior FFA. 152, John Yeager Montgomery Dobbin 4H. 153, Phoebe Thacker Caney Creek FFA. 154, Ivy O'Neill New Caney Junior FFA. 155, Lacey Chilson Shining Star 4H. 156, Penelope Vasquez Grand Oaks FFA. Class 9, you need to be in the holding area. Class 9, need to be in the holding area.
been a real competitive class. We're not going to talk on 6 on down, but I did talk to each of these youth, and it's the same thing we've talked about in the other classes. When we get down to 6 on, we'd like to see a little more muscle. If they have the muscle, we'd like to see the structure and frame and the way they're tied together a little bit better. But again, they have done an excellent job of feeding and getting them to this point. We're going to start off. Our top 3, I think, is really close. I think 4th and 5th fall in there nice, but the top 3, as we handled them the first time they came around and I looked at them, these are the 3 that kind of stuck out to me as having some qualities that I look for. And then as we jumble and talk about priorities and do some things in this class, maybe somewhat a little different than a class or 2 earlier, but I think when we look at bigger differences, I often tell my livestock judging kids that sometimes it's the bigger differences that make a difference, and I think, or make the total difference, and that's where this one wins the class. This one on the move, I'll be honest with you, I don't like him. He throws his head down, throws his shoulder down, he doesn't look as good. You get that guy on the stand, you handle that one, you look at him from the side, and he comes to the top nicely. He's a little higher at his blade. He's a little bit neater as far as the way his body is. He's a little bit wider and has more dimension to his front end. Huge forearm in him, huge rib, really big loin. I think he's a little bit cleaner in the way he ties from his neck into his shoulder. Gives me a little more presence when we put him on the stand. One that handles impeccable as far as touch and tone and hardness of finish, but yet having a little bounce and a little freshness. You go around to the front end of this one's wide. He goes away from you wide. Just like to change him on the walk from the side. He doesn't want to commit his head to this young man and let this young man just jerk his neck out of him and let him walk. And so it makes it somewhat of a hard decision. If he walked good, there wouldn't be much of a decision. I'd like him to walk better. He could be bigger bone, bigger footed in comparison to the 2 behind him, especially the one in 3rd, but one that I just think brings those qualities of touch, handle, length of body, proportional balance. Skeleton is good. He just doesn't want to give his head to move around. We look in 2nd and 3rd. Second one really wide coming at you. One that has a nice touch as well. Not quite as firm to the touch is the one in 1st. I think where he beats the one in 3rd, or where he beats the one in 3rd to me, is he's a little bit bigger in that middle part of his rib. He has a little bit more curvature to the upper and lower rib. Both of these goats get a little forward in their shoulder, a little down in their neck when they're on the stand. When they walk out, they're pretty much opposite of the one in 1st. They get their head up, neck up, and they look better on the walk than the one in 1st. So it's kind of some give and take there. I think this one has just a little more shape to his body, a little more shape to his rib, a little more shape to his that top side of his skeleton in comparison to the one in 3rd. I think the one in 3rd's a little bit bigger boned, a little bit neater as far as the way he ties together from his blade into his forerib. He just doesn't have as much forerib and as much dimension to that rib as the one in 2nd, and consequently not quite as much loin edge as the top 2 and falls in 3rd. One that's real attractive from the side, the white goat, one that just doesn't have the stoutness in comparison to the top 3. We need to blow this one apart both on the bottom and top side of his skeleton to compete. But when he walks around structurally and skeletally, he holds himself together good. He handles good as far as his touch, tone, hide management, those type of things. We just need more of him. We get one next that really attractive from the side, just especially when we get back to the loin in that hip. We just need to blow this one up and give him more horsepower in comparison to them top ones. But really attractive, really structurally and skeletally nice one from the side. Got to have more of him to compete with those up top. And again, we get into 6 on down. We start getting into some goats that need some more bone, need some more structure and skeleton changes, maybe some more muscle. But an excellent, excellent class, and these people have done a good job. The thing they're going to get from y'all is a round of applause for their efforts today. So let's do that and recognize them in that way.
First call, Class 10, move to the holding area. Class 10, move to the holding area. Results of Class 8. First place goes to 152, John Yeager, Montgomery Dobbin, 4H. Second goes to 155, Lacey Chilson, Shining Star, 4H. Third went to 151, Blakely Bariu, the Woodlands Junior, FFA. Fourth was 153, Phoebe Thacker, Caney Creek, FFA. Fifth was 147, Abby Yao, Montgomery FFA. Sixth was 150, Savannah Shackelford, Oak Ridge FFA. Seventh was 146, Ada Campbell, Conroe FFA. Eighth was 156, Penelope Vasquez, Grand Oaks FFA. Ninth was 148, Amatus Hardin, College Park Junior FFA. 10th was 149, Una Laney, College Park FFA. And 11th was 154, Ivy O'Neill, New Caney Junior FFA. This is Class 9, exhibitor number 157, Kinsey Tedder, Willis FFA. 158, Grace Thieg, Champion 4H. 159, Brindley Dean, Splendora 4H. 160, Jackson Dutton, Willis FFA. 161, Ella Pullen, Oak Ridge FFA. 162, Alice Lederhaus, Grand Oaks FFA. 163, Faith Bailey, Splendora FFA. 164, Lux Stinchfield, Montgomery Junior FFA. 165, Alexis Estep, Lake Creek FFA. 166, Jared Fuentes, West Fork FFA. 167, Vivian Sawyer, West Fork FFA. 168, Alexa Hensley, Grand Oaks FFA.
Well, a challenging class, I'll be honest with you. When they came in the ring, one that was, I didn't really find that one that just said pick me, or those 3 or 4 that just kind of stuck out and I knew would go to the top. When I handled them, I got some variance there, and these 5 or 6 that are up at the top kind of moved their way up on handling characteristics. And then when we moved them at the end, that was kind of the final decision and the final thing that put them in their position of where they were. But a challenging class doesn't mean it's a bad class, just a challenging class. Maybe just didn't find those 1, 2, or 3 that were in the top like I have in the other classes as quickly and easily. But we're going to start off with one that when we get this one stopped, this one really is nice. Really like that shape of his body, really like that shape of his loin, one that comes at you wide. I guess one that could have more fur, more hair, more shag, or whatever you want to call it when you look at him in comparison to some of the others. But I think he's adequate in foot and bone size. Has some forearm. One that when he moves around nicely. I'm not going to say he's perfect on his hind two. We could change him ever so slightly there and square him up just a tad. But I think one that when you look at handling characteristics, balance, leanness to muscle ratio, this one wins the class nicely. The one in second, I think, follows really good. Another big-bodied, well-balanced one. One that you can see the crease down his top. He doesn't tie as well from his shoulder and blade in the top part of his rib quite as well as the 2 on either side of him. He is a little bigger footed and bigger boned than they are. Probably handles his rear 2 as good as anything in the class. This one kind of excels on the move and looks better in motion and on the stroll than anything else, and that's why he's up there in second, along with the fact that he's wide and has a lot of muscle down his top and through his hip and in his pin bones. We could make that one a little bit better behind his shoulder, make him a little better on the stand as far as his looks, maybe harden him up just a tad in comparison to the goats on either side. He would be ideal and move up a spot for sure. We get into the red-butted goat, and one that handles like a dream as far as firmness and muscle density. This one's really got a lot of touch to it, good touch to it. You're welcome. Good touch to it. We'd like to make this one wider from behind. We'd like to make him wider coming at us. We'd like to drop his rear flank. But when you talk about leanness and one that has a lot of cutability, this one has a lot of cutability. We can change some things about it as far as width and dimension and that type of thing in comparison to the top 2. But as far as touch and tone and cutability, that one comes to the top and in third because of those characteristics. We get into the next one, really long-bodied, really cool to look at. We'd like to see these next 3 all handle their hind 2 just a little bit better. They're not quite as square from hock to ground. They get just a little off in their rear end. I think this one's the best of the 3 as far as movement. I think this one's really fresh to the touch. We could give this one just a little bit more look from the side. This one could be a little more competitive in this class, maybe a little harder to the touch in comparison to the one in third, and we could move him up into that spot. I don't think he's got enough stoutness and width and dimension to mess with the first 2 as far as quality and as far as competition. We get into the one in fourth, really up in the next. Young lady does a good job of stretching this one out. He does get a little deviated in his loin. Good job. A little deviated in his loin. He's not quite as wide in his pin setting. Sure need to change him on them rear 2 when we put them down. They get just a little off, a little bit wobbly, if you will, maybe a little in when we put him in motion. But really nice job as far as hair coat, as far as freshness in the way that one handles. Next one's really level. I really like that about that one. I love the profile of that one. I just need more lower rear leg, need more stoutness to it. Good job. Need more stoutness to him. Need him to be bigger in his foot, bigger in his bone, wider in his bottom part of his body cavity. Give him a little bit more dimension to his body, but sure need to give him a little more lower leg and a little more foot size and bone. Next one handles nice as far as freshness, firmness. This one does have a little more foot and bone. Just doesn't move quite as well. Gets just a little bit off when we look at him in the balance aspect in comparison to the ones in front. But appreciate the way that young lady's brought a nice one as far as touch and tone's concerned. As we talked, we have some that we'd like to change structurally, skeletally. We have some that have muscle that we'd like to lean up, make a little cooler looking, but a really nice set, and these kids have done an awesome job. Again, let's reward them with a round of applause for their efforts here in this class.
First call, Class 11, move to the holding area. Class 11, move to the holding area. Results of Class 9. First place goes to 163, Faith Bailey, Splendora, FFA. Second was 165, Alexis Estep, Lake Creek, FFA. Third was 160, Jackson Dutton, Willis, FFA. Fourth was 168, Alexa Hensley, Grand Oaks, FFA. Fifth was 158, Grace C, Champion 4H. Sixth was 157, Kinsey Tedder, Willis, FFA. Seventh was 159, Brindley Dean, Splendora, 4H. Eighth was 162, Alice Lederhaus, Grand Oaks, FFA. Ninth was 168, Hira Fuentes, West Fork, FFA. 10th was 161, Ella Pullen, Oak Ridge, FFA. 11th was 167, Vivian Sawyer, West Fork, FFA. And 12th was 164, Lux Stinchfield, Montgomery Jr., FFA. This is Class 10. Exhibit number 169, Samuel Richardson, Oak Ridge, FFA. 170, Paisley Harriman, Champion 4H. 171, Olivia Nelson, Magnolia West, FFA. 172, Madison Katsuk, Champion 4H. 173, Hope Campbell, Conroe, FFA. 174, Ryder Lira, Splendora, FFA. 175, Jalen Lopez, Oak Ridge, FFA. 176, Jocelyn Schultz, Conroe Jr., FFA. 177, Olivia Schaefer, Shining Star, 4H.
Well, by far the toughest class of the day. This one runs deep. I told some of the youth on the end of this line that if they would have been in the class before, and I don't know what the next class looks like, but surely a class or two before, the quality of those goats would have been up in the top 5 or 6, and it's just one of those things that the cards fell where they fell, but a really nice set of goats, and then we've got some immature goats that to me aren't quite ready yet. But these top 3, they came to the top both on the move and on the handle. They were attractive when they came in, and I gravitated to them. When we handled them, we step back and look at them and start analyzing, and I think they come to the top nicely. In saying that, they're all quality goats, but there are some minute differences and some differences in them, and we'll talk about those and my priorities and why we put one first, second, and third here. This one that wins it from the side, really cool from that neck to that shoulder to that forerib. This one comes back, gets wider as he goes back. You look at him from a half side view or a 3/4 here. This one really balances nice, has a nice look to his skeleton and structure, really has a good touch to him when you go up for close inspection. He's not the biggest bone, biggest footed, but when you look at him, and he may not be the widest, especially going away, but I think when you put everything together and you talk about balance and look from the side, we put this one on the move. He handles his neck and front end carriage just a little bit nicer than the 2 behind him. I would like to see him a little bit wider going away from me, maybe step just a little wider and truer on that rear hock if we're going to get real critical of him, but one that we sure appreciate the handling characteristics. We appreciate that skeleton and structure and the way he's put together. Next one's aggressive, is the best way to say it. This one's got a big old groove down his top, really big in that rib shape, tremendous out through that hip as far as width and dimension to leg. He doesn't handle his front end quite as well. We'd like to see him just a little bit neater in that blade, have that necktie into that shoulder with a little more leanness and cleanness, make him just a little more attractive about that front end. But big forearm, a lot of width, good balance from the side as far as front and rear flank relationship. We get that front end up a little bit, make him a little cooler there. Maybe smooth him out just a little bit in that loin and jump muscle. I think it becomes real close between those top 2. The one that probably looks the best on the move, or does look the best on the move to me, is this one. When you talk about putting the rear leg down right, when you talk about movement and covering the track, when you talk about the way the skeleton ties together there, I think this one moves as good as any of them in the class. And when he came in, I gravitated and looked to him because of that. When we get him handled, he doesn't have quite as much shape to him when we look in the middle part of his body. We get back behind that blade and we compare him to the top 2. He's a little pinched in the heart, if you will. He's a little pinched in the loin. He's a little bit off as far as having some jump muscle and some roundness to his pins. But when we get him in motion, he moves out and covers well. Really appreciate the way he hits the dust. Really appreciate that extra neatness as far as coolness of front end. I need to bold this one up in that rib. I need to bold him up in his loin. I need to level that hip out ever so slightly when we look at him from the side. Good as far as touch and tone. Not quite as aggressive muscled as the one in second. Not as complete as the one in first as far as the way he looks from the side and that structure and skeleton. We get into the next one, and the next one just needs to be more of him. He's not ready today. This one's green and not quite ready. Needs a little more time on the track. Needs to get bulked up just a little bit. But what a profile. Really neat as far as the way that one ties from front to rear. His transitions from blade to forerib to loin to hip are really seamless and nice. We could make him a little bigger boned if we wanted, a little bigger footed if we got real critical. But he has some forearm. He has some look from the side. Just not his day-to-day as far as being ready and market ready in comparison to the top 3, and got into a class that 3 that are really ready and really handling with those characteristics. Nice goat, really good look to him. Just need more of him. Somewhat the same song and dance here. Not quite as cool fronted, not quite as transitioning as well, not quite as wide coming at me and going away from me, but one that's got a cool look from the side. Not quite ready today. We like the shape that started there. We need to smooth it out, give him a little more time on feed, and I think that one looks better. This one here, really like the touch and tone. Gets a little up forward in his shoulder, a little bit bigger in his blade. Doesn't balance quite as well from the side as the 2 in front of him. We'd like to smooth him up from the side a little bit, stouting him up. We've got one really cool looking, needs to be bigger footed and boned. We've got one we need to change a little bit in that top line. He deviates behind his blade going into his forerib, doesn't have as much width out through his pins. Told this young lady at the end, this one gets in the top 5 or 6 in some other classes as far as touch and tone, but gets a little forward in his blade, a little bit bigger, doesn't blend quite as well from front to rear, but a good handling one with good hide, and she's done a great job presenting. Let's give all those kids a round of applause. A really nice class, fun one to do. Congratulations to them.
First call, Class 12. Class 12, you need to move to the holding area. Results of Class 10. First place goes to 174. Ryder Lyra, Splendora, FFA. Second goes to 172. Madison Kazuk, Champion 4H. Third goes to 170. Paisley Hireman, Champion 4H. Fourth goes to 171. Olivia Nelson, Magnolia West, FFA. Fifth was 177. Olivia Schaefer, Shining Star 4H. Sixth was 169. Samuel Richardson, Oak Ridge, FFA. Seventh, 173. Hope Campbell, Conroe, FFA. Eighth was 176. Jocelyn Schultz, Conroe Jr., FFA. And ninth was 175. Jalen Lopez, Oak Ridge, FFA. This is Class 11. Exhibitor 178, Madison Lingram, Splendora, FFA. 179, Macelin Schultz, Conroe Jr., FFA. 180, Mackenzie Davis, Oak Ridge, FFA. 181, Hayat Yamani, The Woodlands, FFA. 182, Brody Willis, Splendora, FFA. 183, Emmy Hayes, Magnolia, FFA. 184, Ashley Wilson, Grand Oaks, FFA. And 185, Dylan Bailey, Splendora, FFA.
Well, a nice class to sort. I think the easiest thing to do in this class is put the one up on top. I think that one wins nicely. I think when you look at balance and proportion, structural and skeletal quality, I think that one comes to the top nicely. When this one moves around, again, he's got that look. He moves with his skeleton really nicely. Bones work well together, really proportionally balanced. You get on top of him. He has some muscle, and he gets wider as he goes back. One that's wide coming at you and going away from you once again. Moves really nice when he goes across and strolls around the ring. I think his big thing's over number 2. He's a little wider in his pin setting, a little bit neater the way he sets his rear legs down, a little bit cooler about his front. The one in second's really bold in the middle part of his body. You can see that extra width this one has, that dimension in his rib. That equates to him having more dimension on the top side of his skeleton than the next one. He's bigger in his rib, bigger in his loin, has more total dimension down that in that front 1/3 of his body. He's not as big boned, not as big footed. He's not as cool looking as the one in third, but he's more ready today and handles with more bulge and more muscle, and therefore he's second. The one in third is really attractive, like the bone and foot size. This one's not quite as ready as the ones on either side of him, but one that I think you have to recognize that extra quality he has as far as having some bone and foot, some feature, a really good look from the side. Young lady does a nice job of showing him. I like his levelness and his look from the side better than I do this one behind him in fourth. The one in fourth is a little finer featured, a little finer boned in comparison to the one in front. Really aggressive as far as muscle's concerned. When we compare him to the one in second, to me, he's not as cool about his front, not as cool about his shoulder, not as neat, has that kind of muscle. He has more muscle than the one in third, but he's not as good as far as bone, foot size, look from the side, structure, and skeletal quality, and therefore he's fourth today. Next one just falls a little bit apart when we put him on the stand. Wants to get off in that top line a little bit. She's done a nice job of getting him ready. And has some rib and curvature of the rib. Doesn't have as much touch and tone. Doesn't have as much skeletal quality. And then I talked to these last three. We'd like to change the muscle, the side. They're a little bit flat. Not quite as much to them as what's above them, but a really nice class. These kids have done an excellent job. Again, let's give them a round of applause for their efforts here.
Class 13, you need to move to the holding area. Class 13, move to the holding area. Results of Class 11, first place goes to 185, Dylan Bailey, Splendora, FFA. Second was 180, Mackenzie Davis, Oak Ridge, FFA. Third was 181, Hyatt Yamani, The Woodlands, FFA. Fourth was 179, Mason Schultz, Conroe Jr., FFA. Fifth was 178, Madison Lingram, Splendora, FFA. Sixth was 182, Brody Willis, Splendora, FFA. Seventh was 183, Emmy Hayes, Magnolia, FFA. And eighth was 184, Ashley Wilson, Grand Oaks, FFA. This is Class 12. Exhibit number 186, Olivia Breaching, Trails End, 4H. 187, Amy Vader, Oak Ridge, FFA. 188, Sophia Thompson, College Park, FFA. 189, Ureli Rodriguez, Caney Creek, FFA. 190, Haley Wink, New Caney Jr., FFA. 191, Hayden Wilkinson, Magnolia, FFA. And 192, Henry O'Neill, Lake Creek, FFA.